It started with midnight deliveries, silent drivers, unlabeled boxes, and the neighbor who opened his door before anyone could knock. I thought it was odd, until the night I heard the boxes breathing. Until the night I looked through the peephole, and his eyes blinked sideways. If I had listened to the warning, "Do not watch again," I might have survived what crawled out of those boxes. Before everything happened, my life was painfully normal, but then he moved in, the neighbor across the hall, and my nights haven't been quiet since. It started with boxes arriving after midnight. Every single night. Not once did the delivery driver show up during the day. Not once did my neighbor answer the door in less than a minute. And not once, did I ever see him carry those packages out again. What made it strange wasn't just the schedule, it was the sound. The boxes never made normal package sounds. Instead of a weighty thud or the soft shuffle of cardboard, there was always this shivering noise, like something trembling inside. My first sleepless night, the night I started writing things down. I had just moved into the building, a narrow, aging apartment complex that smelled like old carpet and stale coffee. Cheap rent, decent lighting, and thin walls I assumed I could tolerate. My unit was on the third floor, end of the hall. His was across from mine. That night, my very first night there, I was unpacking when I heard footsteps echoing through the corridor. It was far past midnight, and everything had gone quiet hours ago. Normal footsteps I wouldn't have noticed. But these were slow, dragging, as though the person taking them was trying not to make a sound but didn't know how to walk quietly. I paused, box cutter still in my hand. Then I heard the knock. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. Deliberate. I opened my door just a crack. Nothing but the dim hallway lights and the heavy smell of dust. But then someone appeared from the stairwell, a delivery driver. No company logo. No bag. Just a plain gray uniform and a box tucked under one arm. He didn't glance at me. Didn't acknowledge me. Didn't look humanly aware of anything except the apartment number as he set the box down. My neighbor opened the door almost instantly. Not even a second passed. That door opened like he had been standing behind it the whole time, listening for the knock. I couldn't see his face. Just a silhouette, tall and narrow, backlit by the soft glow of a single lamp. He took the box, whispered something I couldn't make out, and gently closed the door. No signature. No conversation. No label on the box. I remember standing there, suddenly unsure if I had actually seen any of it or if I had dozed off on my feet during unpacking. Then I heard it. A noise from inside the box. The faintest, trembling vibration. Like something, shifting. I shut my door fast. The second night, the exact same thing happened. Same driver. Same uniform. Same box. Same shivering sound coming from inside it. The third night, I stayed up deliberately, pretending to watch TV but really listening for the steps. When they came, slower this time, I noticed something chilling. There were 2 sets of footsteps. One belonged to the driver. The other. I'm still not sure. The second set was softer, uneven, almost like something limping. But the driver was alone. I checked the peephole. There was nobody with him. Yet the footsteps continued until they both stopped at my neighbor's door. I remember holding my breath, pressing my eye against the peephole so hard that it hurt. My neighbor opened the door again, and this time, for a moment, I saw his hand. Pale. Too pale. Thin, almost bony, with veins that bulged like blue ropes. And long fingernails. Too long for comfort. Almost claw-like. When he reached for the box, it moved. Not a twitch. Not a shift. It moved toward him. Like something inside recognized him. I backed away from the door so fast I almost tripped over the box. I backed away from the door so fast I almost tripped over the box I had been unpacking earlier. For the rest of the night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening. Listening to whatever was happening across the hall. Something being opened. Something scraping the floor. Something that made my heart hammer in ways I didn't think possible. Then, silence. The worst kind. The kind that told you nothing was over. The night began with a plan. A stupid plan. A plan you'd scream at a horror movie character for. I told myself I wasn't going to get involved, that this was none of my business, that people get strange deliveries all the time. But curiosity does things to a man living alone with thin walls, long nights, and the kind of silence that makes you think too much. I positioned myself on the floor by the door, ear pressed lightly to the wood. I didn't want to be caught peeking through the peephole again, so this was the compromise. Listening, not watching. Around 1 in the morning, the hallway lights flickered, a sign that the nighttime delivery ritual was about to begin. That flicker had happened every night. I hadn't noticed it the first 2 nights, but once I did, I realized it wasn't an electrical issue. It felt more like a warning. Then came the familiar rhythm. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Dragging. But tonight, I heard something else too. A faint hum. Low and vibrating, like the air itself was unsettled. 3 knocks. And then a pause. I held my breath and leaned closer. I could hear the driver breathing. A strange detail to notice, I know, but in the silence of the hall, it was impossible to miss. His breaths were shallow, like he was nervous. Or not human. Or both. My neighbor's door opened, but not like before. This time, it creaked, as though the door itself was reluctant. There was a low scraping sound too, like something heavy being dragged away from behind it. A chain? A latch? I still don't know. The instant the door opened fully, the temperature in my apartment dropped. I'm not exaggerating. My breath fogged. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. And I felt something primal, telling me not to move. That was when I made the mistake. I shifted my weight to hear better, and my knee bumped my keys. They made the faintest jingle. Barely a sound. But it was enough. The breathing outside the door stopped. Everything stopped. The hallway went so quiet it felt like it was holding its breath along with me. Then I heard my neighbor whisper something, words I didn't recognize, in a language that didn't sound like anything spoken by humans. It was harsh but soft, guttural yet whisper-like, layered like multiple voices speaking at once. That whisper changed the temperature again, and for a moment I felt dizzy, like gravity itself twisted. I don't know what instinct made me do it, maybe desperation, maybe fear, but I slowly lifted my head and looked through the peephole. That's when I saw him. And God, I wish I could unsee what I saw. My neighbor's face was wrong. Not grotesque. Not monstrous. Just wrong in a way that made my brain scramble for explanations that didn't exist. His skin was pale, yes, but not the kind of pale you get from being indoors too much. It was almost translucent, stretched thin over sharp bones, like it was trying to hold something inside that wanted to push out. His eyes were wide, not just in expression, but unnaturally wide, as though the lids had been pulled back farther than skin should allow. The whites weren't white. They were a faint shade of gray, cloudy and swirling, like dirty storm water. His pupils were enormous and almost reflective, like the eyes of an animal that's adapted to eternal darkness. And God help me, when he blinked, the blink was sideways. Sideways. I felt my whole body freeze. My lungs refused air. My fingers went numb. Then he turned. Not quickly. Not sharply. Slowly. Very slowly. As though he had always known exactly where I was. As though he had always heard. Me. His eyes landed directly on mine, even through the peephole. And the moment they did, I felt a pressure in my skull, like invisible fingers were prodding at my thoughts, testing the edges of my mind like they were feeling for a weakness. My vision blurred. For a moment, everything around me dimmed, like someone was turning down the world's brightness through a dial. And then he smiled. It wasn't a human smile. There were too many teeth for that. I launched backward from the door, hit the floor hard, and scrambled away like an animal. My heart was hammering so loud I thought it would burst. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle any sound. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't dare wipe them. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then what felt like hours. Finally, I heard the door across the hall close. And then something touched my door. Not knocking. Not scratching. Just, touched. Like a hand was pressing flat against it. The air grew heavy again. My ears rang. My temples throbbed. Then, softly, so softly I almost convinced myself I imagined it, I heard that same layered whisper, directly on the other side of my door, "I know you are awake." I stopped breathing entirely. The pressure withdrew. And slow steps moved away. My neighbor's door opened. His door closed. And the hallway settled back into its eerie, unnatural silence. I didn't sleep that night. Not after seeing what I saw. Not after realizing what I realized. Because the next morning, when I finally forced myself to open my door, pretending nothing happened, pretending everything was normal, there was a note on my floor. A plain piece of paper. No handwriting. Just one printed sentence: "Do not watch again." For the next few days after receiving the note, I did everything I could to avoid my neighbor. I changed my routine, started leaving for work earlier, waited until well past dark to return. I stacked towels at the bottom of my door to muffle sound. I even slept in my clothes in case I had to run. And then, of course, came the night when all of that didn't matter anymore. It began with silence. Not the usual nighttime quiet of the building, but a deep, suffocating hush that settled over everything. My clock had stopped ticking. The hum of the fridge had stilled. Even the traffic outside, constant, even at night, was gone. A silence too complete to be natural. My heart sank. Something was wrong. Then came the first sound, the hallway lights flickering on and off in a steady rhythm. Not the random flickers from before. No, this was a pattern. A pulse. Like the building itself was breathing. I crawled to the door, against every instinct I had, and pressed my ear to it. No footsteps tonight. No knock. No delivery driver. But my neighbor's door opened anyway. I felt that cold rush of air slam into me even through the wood. My fingers trembled as I forced myself to stand and look through the peephole, knowing I shouldn't. But I did. And the hallway was wrong. It wasn't my hallway anymore. The walls were stretched, elongated, as though the space had been pulled and warped into something older, deeper. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips, revealing something behind it, pulsing, dark, moving like muscle under thin skin. The floorboards rippled, breathing. And my neighbor stood in the center of it all. But he wasn't holding a box this time. He was holding many. 10 of them. Maybe more. All stacked, all sealed, all trembling with that same shivering motion I had heard through my wall for days. They weren't delivered tonight, they were waiting. Like they had been gathering for this moment. He turned. Not his head, his entire body turned at once without shifting weight, his limbs rotating as though on an invisible hinge. Those side-blinking eyes found the peephole before I even finished leaning into it. He smiled again. Too many teeth. Too wide. Too knowing. He raised a hand, long fingers, pale skin, blue veins, and he pointed directly at my door. The boxes began to move. On their own. One by one, they crawled toward me. The hallway floor bulged beneath them as if pushing them forward. I stumbled back from the door, falling onto my hands. From inside the boxes, I heard something. Not scratching. Not shifting. Breathing. Dozens of tiny breaths. Fast. Hungry. Then, one of the boxes split at the corner. Something small pressed against the cardboard. Something wet. Something alive. I scrambled to my feet and backed away, heart pounding, every instinct in my body screaming at me to run, but where? The window? The bathroom? No escape was real. Then my neighbor spoke. Not in that inhuman whisper this time. Not in the layered voice that made the air vibrate. He spoke in a perfect human tone. Calm. Gentle. Almost kind. You shouldn't have watched. The hallway lights went dark. Something slammed into my door with a violent thud. Then another. And another. The boxes. The things inside them. Pounding, clawing, eager. My door bent inward with each impact. The towels I'd wedged under it blew across the apartment from the force of the cold air pouring in. Every light flickered wildly. The pounding grew rhythmic, frenzied, synchronized. Then, everything stopped. Dead silence. I stood frozen, chest heaving, tears hot on my cheeks. A single whisper drifted through the cracks of the door. Let us in. I don't remember collapsing. I don't remember the hours that followed. When I woke up, it was morning. The hallway was normal. The wallpaper was fine. The lights were steady. And every box was gone. So was my neighbor. The apartment across the hall was empty. Completely empty. As if no one had ever lived there at all. The building manager claimed the unit had been vacant for years. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it again. The dragging footsteps. The whispering hum. The pulse of the hallway lights. And I know the packages will return one day. I know he will return. And when he does, I don't think the door will hold this time.